think it was pretty gracious to give NATO more than a week to respond before I started talking about the Russian drone that struck within Romanian territory on the night of May the 29th, injuring 2 people and causing a fire in an apartment building. There's a reason that I'm not surprised by the lack of response, and there's also a reason that I don't think that this strike was accidental. It is pretty incredible on one level that this happened without any meaningful response, and I mean, closing a consulate is not a very strong response. The drone struck in a heavily populated area of Romania that is also very close to the border with Moldova. It feels like an attack that's meant to intimidate multiple different countries at once. Multiple countries which are currently victims of Russian aggression, interference in the democratic process, and also sabotage and physical acts of aggression. This is actually the 28th time that a drone has crossed into Romanian territory since the start of the war. I want to contrast this with another state's response to Russian aggression. Turkey, also a NATO member state, shot down a Russian fighter jet. One of the Russian pilots actually died, but the reality is that Moscow's response was incredibly limited. And what's really interesting is that we have not seen further incursions into Turkish airspace. This is one of the reasons that I don't believe that the most recent drone attack in Romania was an accident, because this is part of a broader pattern of behavior. And they've never been brought up short. They've never been stopped by any EU member state, regardless of what they do. I think there's often this perception that anyone in the defense and security field who is advocating for what's perceived as more of a hawkish response, that person wants war. But probably the most widely understood maxim in the security and defense field is that being able to defend oneself is actually the best prevention for war and the best deterrent for aggression. And so we talk about deterrence a lot, but the public still hears what Putin says, and Putin always frames everything as an escalation. So they hear, oh gosh, we're moving towards war. And they don't have the context of cases like the Turkish one to understand that this is the thing that would prevent a war. You can see, for example, another way in which a Russian red line has been crossed with no significant response is when Ukraine started striking strategic targets within Russia. And the fact that there was no meaningful escalation on the Russian side is a great example of why we shouldn't be afraid to show a meaningful response.